Hey, how are you? How's it
How's
going?
lovely New York City?
It's all right. It's going. It's the same as usual. I think
The
that's
the rumor on the
the
street
best
is that
way.
New York City is dead. That New York City is gone and done and over with. Is it true? Are the rumors true?
I I wouldn't go that far. No, I've seen a lot of that. It's still. I mean, there's still a lot going on, but it's definitely muted. I think muted is a good way of
All right,
putting it.
all
But
right.
there's still going to be a lot.
Well, listen, thank you everybody for being here. We're going to get to as many travel questions as we can, whatever is on your mind about travel right now, about COVID, about airplane safety, about when things might open up, plans that we have, plans that you have. Drop your questions in below. Remember, by SCF law, we have to answer the first question no matter what. Then we're going to get to as many of them as we can. Julian, have you booked any flights recently?
Not recently. I booked a deal probably a few months back. It was do you remember when we had those kind of crazy Japan fairs going on? So I
I
booked a
do, but
Japan.
but if you don't
Yeah.
mind letting the audience know.
Oh yeah, yeah. So this was probably what, like 2 months ago, a month and a half, 2 months ago. We sent out some 300s to 400s round trip from to Japan from places like Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, I think we even saw it drop into like the $280 round trip.
$174 round trip.
That
Unbelievable.
price drop I even forgot.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And then but I was
Nice. So
able
you
to
got
get
that one.
no, yeah, I got the Philadelphia to Japan for 300, 360, $370 round trip, which is still, I mean, out of this world. So that's the
When
last
are
thing.
you going? Or should I say, when are
Supposedly
you
March.
hoping to go?
Yeah, supposedly March, but of course with the rumors of Japan reopening, I think, well, not rumors, the Japan reopening in April, as of now, it sounds like, doesn't seem like it's going to be that possible, but we'll
I want
see.
to
I mean,
say I want to say our super fan Allison Parkin also had a flight to Japan in March. So you
yep,
two are
in
in the
March.
same situation, watching the same data.
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
100%.
Looks like
Yeah.
we've got some questions coming in. The reins are over to Julian. He's going to be who you have to butter up to get your question answered. But remember, first questions have to be answered no matter what.
Yeah. First, we started off with a comment, which I love. Adriana starts with, "Hi, heard good things about you."
Aw,
So there you
God,
go.
how great would it be if like every comment, every time you meet somebody, or the first thing you hear, hey, I heard great things about you. Like,
Heard good
gosh,
things
we should
about
be
you.
so lucky to live in that world. Thank you, Adrian. I've heard great
I
things
know.
about you too, and we appreciate your being.
So first question that we have is from John, and he asks, "Any suggestions to make the best use of the bucket of travel credits I've accumulated due to cancellations?"
Ooh, this is a really good question. A lot of folks might be in this type of scenario where you have a bunch of vouchers or travel credits. Um, the thing that I like to do personally is keep it all in a spreadsheet. The least reliable way to remember these is with the old noggin. Okay. If you're going to try to memorize or remember what they are, you're going to miss stuff. You're going to forget it. I just put it all in a spreadsheet. I say, what's the airline? How much is the amount? Any of the, PNR ticket code numbers or anything like that. And then, especially, this is really important, the expiration date. If it needs to be used by a certain date, if you might need to buy the ticket by a certain date or travel by a certain date, knowing that for sure. And so that way you can kind of be planning your travels accordingly, but also remembering too that the expiration dates aren't always set in stone. So two examples come to mind. One, I was in the same boat. I had about a $500 travel credit on Alaska Airlines. And they actually just announced a couple weeks ago where they said, we'll give you a really favorable conversion to take those travel credits and convert them to miles. So you can actually, I think it was basically essentially like 100 to 1 or something, where you would get, I had like 50,000, I had like $500 in travel credit and convert that to 50,000 miles, which you could, in my mind, be able to get a lot more value out of than the $500 cash. So converting those to miles. The miles don't expire. Really nice. If you have Alaska Airlines miles, I would recommend that. But for other ones, the second thing that I would recommend, if you don't have a trip planned before the expiration date, is to give the airline a call. They're real people working in the customer service department at American Airlines, at Delta, at United. They are understandably, haven't seen folks go through a lot during this pandemic, trying to reschedule things. I think there's a really good chance that they'll work with you and say, yeah, we can extend that 6 months. We can extend that 9 months. We can help you, be able to make use of it, rather than being kind of the normal hard asses that a lot of people and a lot of departments were pre-pandemic. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts there, Julian?
No, I think the best thing to do, I'm pretty forgetful. So the spreadsheet 100% is the way to go. Without it, I probably would lose out on hundreds of credits and just all of that. So 100%, that's keep track of it. Make sure you have it, so that when you need it, it's ready to go, and you know exactly what you have, what you need to do. So definitely good advice there. Next questions, 2 questions come from Brian. So his first question is, flying to Egypt on November 5th, any advice?
Oh boy.
Do you want to start us off? Yeah.
Have a great flight. Don't forget your mask. Be cognizant of your surroundings in the airport, because from everything that I've read, and from everything that the research and scientists have been pointing to, the real risk of travel comes less from the airplane itself. The air in a cabin tends to be quite safe because of HEPA filters. The risk of transmission is quite low, but that the airport itself, congregating around the gate, in a lot of ways, that might be where the riskier part of travel is. So that would be kind of my main advice if you're asking around kind of travel and safety. But otherwise, have a great trip, man. I bet it's going to be not only a great time to be there, but I bet the crowds that you might normally expect around, Giza and other parts of the Egypt's iconic spots are going to be a fraction of what they normally are. So what a cool thing to be able to experience that without the, throngs of other tourists. Anything else to add there, Julian?
No, I mean, I think you've covered most of it. It's being mindful of where you are, being mindful of the proximity you are to other people, and wearing a mask. I think those are the two big ones there. So his the second part of Brian's question is, he wants to go to Greece next June. I also want to go to Greece next June. When should I look for the $1,200 fares to drop some?
Ooh, don't pay $1,200. Please don't pay $1,200. I don't know where you're flying out of, and it's going to depend a little bit. If you're flying out of New York, you can expect to be able to get that for like $400. And if you're flying out of, Omaha or Billings, Montana or somewhere, it might be closer to $600. But $1,200, especially if you're talking about a trip for 8 months from now, 9 months from now, no, don't do that. The thing that I would be looking out for, I mean, absolutely, we see that route drop pretty regularly from across the U.S. and especially from the Northeast, New York, D.C., elsewhere, down to $400, $500 round trip to Athens. But even if that's not popping up out of your home airport, you're starting to get antsy, you want to get it booked, keep an eye on flights to other nearby places. So keep an eye on cheap flights to Rome, cheap flights to Madrid, Paris, other places like that, Zurich, because once you get to Europe, you can hop a Ryanair flight, some cheap flight down to Athens for $50, $75. That'll combined be way cheaper than if you were to just book a single $1,200 itinerary from the US.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I mean, a few of our members or people watching here have already pointed out. So Christian said that he yesterday bought San Francisco to Athens in June for $500.
I love that profile picture. Well done, Christian.
I know, that's great.
One of my favorite paintings.
It's amazing. And then Itzel, actually, Itzel, please correct me if I'm wrong. But Itzel pointed out that there was a fantastic deal to Greece last week, $500 round trip in summer that we sent out. I think, exactly 7 days ago, and it was a very widespread deal to Athens. One of actually, surprisingly, one of the most widespread Athens deals we've sent in coronavirus and pre-coronavirus. We haven't seen Athens come along as much during coronavirus. Athens is also, or Greece in general, is one of the more expensive places to fly into for Europe. But hopefully, now that we've seen this deal come through, hopefully, we're always keeping an eye out. We're always gonna look for if this deal pops back up. Nick asks from YouTube. Nice. Nick asks, when would you feel safe traveling abroad from the U.S., given when it's allowed by those other countries to accept Americans?
I like this question a lot because it's one of those ones that I think a lot of people are wondering, hoping, when are we going to be allowed out of here? When is it going to be safe to travel again? And so there are a couple of different ways I personally am thinking about this. The first is safety in transit, safety on the plane, safety in the airport, safety getting to where you're going. And I think there is essentially a lot of good news on this front. A lot of people, understandably, were worried about air quality safety given the pandemic and close quarters in an airplane. But it turns out they've researched this a lot since the pandemic began. Basically every single week, a new study coming out showing that it's far less risky than a lot of people might have assumed because of these hospital grade air filters on board, because of the fresh air that's being brought in throughout the trip, and because of the masks that are required across the board on all airplanes without medical exception. They did a study just the other day. They found that of the 1.2 billion passengers who have flown in 2020, only 44 of those have had COVID transmission on a flight. 44 out of 1.2 billion. Those are, you have a much greater chance of getting struck by lightning than the 44 out of 1.2 billion. So safety in transit, I think there's not a lot to be terribly concerned about. The safety, the sort of question though of like, what can you do when you're there? Taking a trip to Paris or Madrid or one of these iconic places. Will stuff be open? Will the museums be open? Will the cafes be open? Will they be safe to go in? That I think that's still much more open question at this point. And we probably won't see a lot of progress on this in the near term. I'm hopeful with things like rapid testing, with new and improved drugs and therapeutics, and eventually, with a vaccine that's shown to be safe, effective, and widely distributed, that we're able to get there by, spring, possibly the early summer of 2021, and be able to have at least some sense of normalcy in some places. But if you're thinking more of an outdoorsy type of place, going and biking around Switzerland or going and hanging out at the beach in Italy, obviously that's a different risk profile than one that's more indoor oriented. Those are the things I think about. The last thing I think about is like, what if there's a spike while I'm there? What if they sort of rules change mid-vacation? And that, I think, is something that is a legitimate concern until we sort of get to a place where vaccines are widely distributed and you can feel a lot more safe and comfortable being able to transit and get home safely. So I've got an international trip. I've got a flight booked to Spain for next spring. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it'll be safe enough to travel by then. If not, the good thing is I know that all the airlines are offering free changes so that I can push my dates back, push it to summer or whenever, and all the while know that I'm not having to pay the normal, hundreds of dollars to change that flight. I have that flexibility so I can kind of roll with the punches. What do you think, Julian? How are you thinking about safety traveling abroad?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is something that we say every week, but it really rings true here that travel comes down to personal preference, personal comfort. I have friends who will be comfortable traveling just based off the rapid testing. I have friends who will be comfortable traveling once a vaccine comes out. I have, kind of all these different factors to look into. I have our friends who, if a country hits a certain or dips below a certain number, that makes them comfortable to travel. So it really comes down to what you're kind of comfortable with. And as Scott always likes to say, travel is mostly about relaxing, and you don't want to be stressed out during your trip. So if the numbers are something you're always going to be checking, if the testing and all of that is something you're constantly going to be keeping an eye on, that's where it comes down to how comfortable you are traveling or where you are. Everyone kind of does have different standards of when I feel okay to travel. For me personally, probably, I mean, I have that Japan trip. I don't know if we'll be let in. That's a different question. But it really comes down to like the different factors of importance that you place on it. So that's personal comfort. I think is a really big one, and not being stressed out during the trip. But it's funny, Scott, when you were talking about the air quality on planes. I just saw a really funny meme like 3 4 days ago, and someone tweeted out like air quality on planes are really good and safe for coronavirus. A study done by Boeing, United, and Department of Defense. And someone retweeted that and was like, yes, also keeping your door and windows cracked open just a little bit is very safe. Study done by like mosquitoes and flies or something. I just thought, like, while I do know that air quality on planes is fine, I just thought that was too funny.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for a lot of us in the northern part of the country once it starts to get a little cooler here soon. Like, ooh, do I increase my COVID risk profile or do I stay warm in the winter? I don't know.
There you go. And then Nick actually followed up his question with also, I wanted to personally thank you for all of your work getting us the deals that have in the past that has saved us thousands of dollars over the years.
Well, thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. Not only your kind words, but for being a member of Scotch Cheap Flights for so long. We do this in order to be able to help people take trips. We're not doing it just for our health. So hearing like from folks like you who are able to take advantage, it really means a lot. So thank you.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from Arturo. I'm happy that I think almost every name or almost every question I've seen, I've recognized either the name or I've recognized the timeshare.
Yeah.
So that makes me happy. Arturo asks, I purchased a flight to Madrid in July. With COVID, is it too early to try and book hotels now, or should we wait?
Not too early. I just would only book something that's refundable. The good thing with hotels, generally, they are fully refundable, even to the extent you're not even paying anything in advance. You're just making literally a reservation, and then you pay when you arrive. With most hotels, obviously, read the fine print, make sure that's the case. With Airbnb, they're often refundable except for a small fee that Airbnb keeps. So, again, check exactly what that is. I would be comfortable making those, but again, only ones that are flexible because I think flexibility is sort of the name of the game in travel plans right now. Book in pencil, not in pen.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think seeing what the cancellation policy and flexibility policies are the number one thing to look at when booking hotels for now. But I mean, if there's a hotel you like and the price is good, and it has a good cancellation policy, I see no problem booking it now and then. On the off chance, or unfortunately, if you do have to cancel a trip, you can just cancel and get your money back for the hotel as well. So, Barry asks and calls out something great. Transylvania is SCF destination of the week. Thank you for reading those emails. We absolutely love our destination of the week emails. Have either of you been? And if so, any personal favorites? Have you been, Scott?
So, funny fact, I have not personally been, but I have ancestors who are from Transylvania. So I feel like I should go. It's a homecoming. I don't know. Haven't made it personally. I've been to Bulgaria and love that area of the world. But after reading that email, it definitely piqued my interest. I definitely rising up a little bit the bucket list. I'm really glad to hear this feedback, and I want to hear from other folks. Are you enjoying these sort of? Obviously, we have started sending once a week destinations, really kind of digging in, not the sort of surface level. Oh, when you're in Paris, go to the Eiffel Tower. Oh, when you're in Rome, go to the Colosseum. Really kind of digging into what's interesting and maybe not obvious about some iconic places around the world, and what are some of the kind of rich culture and texture about a place that is maybe not obvious. So I want to hear how you guys are enjoying it. What types of places you would like to see us highlight, and then also we've been doing a once a week email on sort of flight advice. Not only thinking about booking and cancellations during the pandemic, but also how to think about future travels, safety and COVID on airplanes, for the changes that airlines made with their change fees. What does that all mean for travelers? Trying to make it very sort of tangible and accessible for travelers, not just sort of pie in the sky. Oh, what is the latest Southwest financial earnings report mean for the company? I don't know. I'm kind of interested in that in a geeky way, but let's be real, nobody cares. It's only, what does it mean for airfare? What does it mean for the prices you're going to pay? What does it mean for your trip and your future vacations? That's the way approach we've been taking with it, and love to hear more from you all, how you're liking it, and what, if anything, we can do to make it even more useful. I've not been to Transylvania, have it on the list. Julian, have you been?
No, have not been. And I was saying, if any of our viewers or any of our members here have been, please drop in the comments any personal favorites, any recommendations. But yeah, it's on my list, but it is not. Unfortunately, I've not been able to go. So, but I have loved talking about the newsletters for a second. I have loved kind of what you were saying, the amount of detail it goes into. It's just interesting enough to be able to learn these new facts, but not overbearing. It's like, ooh, these are some really cool fun facts. These are some really cool, tidbits of history or culture that I'm learning, but it doesn't feel like I'm doing homework by reading.
Right, you're not reading the Wikipedia page on
Right.
Transylvania. It's not an anthology on it. You get to whet your appetite with it.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. So definitely recommend our newsletters. And I'm not saying that because I want more people to view them. If it was bad, I would probably hopefully call that out as well. So I would definitely check that out. Moving into our next question, though. Question from Ashley. She asks, I'm looking at flying to Serbia to see some of my partner's family soon. Are US citizens allowed to fly through EU countries for connecting flights, even though we aren't allowed in the EU?
Yes, as long as it's a destination that Americans are allowed, and as long as it's one itinerary. So if you're flying to Serbia via Paris on Air France, and it's a single itinerary, you're golden. But if you booked a flight, let's say a Delta flight to Paris, and then a separate flight on Ryanair from Paris to Serbia or something, in that case, you actually would not be allowed even to get on the flight to Paris, I don't believe. So you need to make sure just that it's a single itinerary, and that way you're allowed to transit, even if you're not going to be allowed to get out of the airport in the EU connecting country.
Yeah, 100%. Nick from earlier said, Ashley, great question. I love seeing the members supporting members, viewers supporting viewers. So that's really cool. Sean asks, 75,000 plus Chase Sapphire miles. That's awesome. Which is the best way to maximize the value on these points?
Yeah, generally, so if you have Chase Sapphire miles, the benefit of them is that they're flexible, and by that I mean you can the way that most people think about using Chase Sapphire miles is literally just redeeming them as cash back. So getting 1.25 cents per mile, and you can buy I don't know, doing quick mental math, like a $600 flight or so, and use 75,000 or maybe 800. No, yeah, it'd be like a $900 flight and use 75,000 miles to pay for it, which you can do. It's not a bad use of them, but it's definitely not maximizing the value. The way to really maximize the value is to be kind of keeping an eye on various different award flights, and then figuring out what is the best way that you can convert those Chase Sapphire miles to get one of those award flights. So for instance, let's say you live in San Francisco and you want to fly out to Hawaii because Hawaii just started allowing travelers again with a negative COVID test, no quarantine needed. If you want to go there, it might cost, $400 or $500 if you're paying cash normally. Obviously, we find cheaper flights. We find them $200, $175. But let's say a normal flight might cost $500. But with Chase Sapphire, if you can convert those to British Airways miles, and using British Airways miles, you can actually redeem for that flight. I want to say it's 25,000 miles round trip per person. And so being able to kind of flex it and use it. Oh, British Airways has a great sale. Oh, Southwest just has a great sale. So let me convert them to some Southwest miles and redeem that way. Oh, United has some really cheap award flights available over to Japan. And so let me convert some of those to United and get that. Being able to have that flexibility gives you a lot of optionality. That in general, the way that people find the best, like the most value, as in like the fewest number of points to get the most expensive flight possible, is on business class flights. Oftentimes when you see travelers, folks like myself who might not look like they belong in the front of the plane, who don't look, super well. Like I'm wearing a hoodie sweatshirt that I had in high school. And so the way that folks might be sitting up there oftentimes is by maximizing their miles and redeeming them for a business class flight, rather than having to pay the thousands of dollars that it would cost to pay to buy that flight in cash. So getting into using those for redeeming for business class flights can be a best value. For instance, it costs as little as 88,000 miles round trip to fly in business class over to Japan from the US. Those are a few of the ways that you can maximize value. There's a bunch of blogs that get really good at this. The Points Guy, obviously, Frequent Miler, View from the Wing. These are all great blogs that help kind of step up your mileage game to be able to get most value from them. But man, let me tell you, it is a complicated subject. Like you can keep getting more and more into it, keep getting better and better value. And at the end of the day, it depends. Are you someone who enjoys like spending that time figuring out how to get the most bang from every single mile? Or are you someone who's just like, I want to get, 80-20 benefit from this. I want to not have to put in a lot of effort and still get a bunch of value, in which case, oftentimes just redeeming them for the straight cash back on travel might be the way to go.
I think this is something people can easily get sucked into and just, becomes part of their life, and they're just that interested in it. So
yeah. And it's cool. Like, look, I like miles a lot. I just booked an award flight this morning. It was great. I didn't have to pay shit for it. But like, the only thing I like better than cheap flights are free flights. But at the same time, if you're not somebody who enjoys this sort of chase, who enjoys the hunt and the like figuring out a riddle aspect of miles, it's not a good like value for time. Like you can spend so many hours digging into this and you'll save like $50 than you might have otherwise. You really need to find joy and excitement in it in order to go that sort of maximizing your value route.
Yeah. How's your schedule looking today, Scott?
I got time for one or two more.
Just go through a few more. One or two more? All right, cool. Just a quick comment from Victoria again. She says, by the way, thank you for that Chicago destination email. That came out the same day I landed a new job that's relocating me to Chicago. So congrats on the new job. And thanks for highlighting the cultural center there. That's one of my favorites.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations, Victoria, on the new job. Exciting that you're going to be going out to Chicago, the Windy City, one of my favorites. And drop us a line when you get there. Let us know how it is and what else we should have put in there. I'd love to hear everybody's kind of personal recommendations, personal favorites in the city.
Yeah. All right. Two more questions. One from Paula. She asks, I will be in Norway June 1st through June 30th. 2021. Should I rent a car or use the Eurail pass for one country or a combination of both? Um, if you look down in our comments, Essa, sorry, has a very good answer to that as well. Says depends on where in Norway you're planning to visit. Rail connection only reaches up to Boda. I don't know how to pronounce that. So you would miss anything north of there, but definitely try out Norway in a nutshell and ferry connection. Lila also said the same. Norway in a nutshell is amazing. For me, when I was in Norway, I didn't use Norway in a nutshell. That's basically a travel package company where if you buy a package through them, they make your life so much easier. But what they do is they book a lot of these local tickets. So they're not creating the package. So if you have the time and you want to save some money, you can also research that exact same trip and buy the tickets yourself. Of course, that does take a good amount more time. So if you just wanted the convenience of it, Norway in a nutshell, I think is amazing. Personally, if you're not going, farther up, I do think the rail train is the way to go. I think in Norway, the actual train journey is some of the best parts of Norway. So
Oh yeah, dude, that train between Oslo and Bergen, one of my favorites in the whole world. It is just gorgeous.
Yeah. So yeah, would definitely recommend the train. Any other thoughts on that there, Scott?
I'm a fan of trains in general, and I find them much more relaxing when I'm on vacation than driving, because when you're driving, you're stressed. You're obviously having to pay a lot of attention. You're not getting to kind of soak it all in or do other stuff. So if I can ever avoid driving and be able to take trains instead, that's the way I always go.
Nice. Perfect. And then one final question. Gonna have a fun one for you, Scott, to end it. Sorry if we couldn't get to everyone's questions. We'll try to answer as many as possible in the next Facebook Live. But James from YouTube asks, question for Scott. What's your background? What did you do prior to Scott Shoot Flights? If you
wow.
have kind of
I was actually a journalist. I worked as a political journalist for years in Washington, D.C. And if anybody knows anything about working in journalism, it's a wonderful industry. I miss it a lot. But one of the things that is a little bit less wonderful about it is nobody goes into journalism to strike it rich. It's not a well compensated industry. And so as a result, here I was, this 22-year-old kid, fresh out of college, working as a journalist, not getting paid very much, but with big dreams to travel the world. And so it's one of those things where I was like, how do I thread this needle here where I don't have a lot of money and I want to be able to travel? And that's kind of what prompted me to get really good, figure out, hey, I knew people were getting cheap flights out there somehow. Like, how do they do it? What do I do? Ended up getting really first into points and miles, and then just digging more, doing a ton of my own research and just following flight trends, seeing how it worked. It all then culminated in 2013 when I got, still to this day, the best deal I've ever gotten in my life, which was nonstop from New York City to Milan for $130 round trip. I had no plans to go to Milan. Milan was not somewhere on my radar. I am not a fashionable guy, but for $130 round trip nonstop, it was no brainer. Like, of course, there's nowhere in the world that I wouldn't go for that price. When I got back from that trip, my friends and coworkers kept coming up to me. Hey, Scott, I heard about that great deal you got. Next time you find a deal like that, can you let me know about it too? And so by the time, 7 or 8 people had asked me this, I realized, gosh, I'm not going to be able to remember every single person who I'm supposed to remind. Talked about earlier about spreadsheets. Don't rely on the old noggin. It's going to let you down. Why don't I start a simple little email list, and that way I can let everybody know at once. I had no plans to start a business. It was not, and for 18 months, it was just something I did for a hobby, as for fun, as a hobby, for the love of the game. But eventually it started to grow large enough that it was, wow, I wonder if there's an actual opportunity here. And finally in 2015, more than 5 years ago, took the plunge to saying a see you later to my journalism career and diving into the cheap flights travel world. It's been completely serendipitous and amazing and unexpected since then. I feel like a total fraud for having been able to have this startup with zero plans or expectations or like studying the business world beforehand, but it's been an amazing ride. I'm so just grateful for the opportunity, grateful to be able to work in travel, work in cheap flights, and help others be able to take some of those trips around the world that they might not have thought they would ever be able to afford. So a very serendipitous background to my coming to become a founder of a travel company. But you know, life's weird that way sometimes. I wouldn't have changed anything if I could. So thanks for the question, James. And thank you all for your great questions. My apologies if we didn't get to any. We're going to be back next week taking more of your questions. Hit us up on Twitter or elsewhere if we didn't get to any, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. Until next week, Julian, thank you so much as always for your hosting. And everybody else, thank you as always for being here. We love you so much. We super appreciate your being continued supporters of Scott's Cheap Flights, and we'll hit you all up next time. Bye.